Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thanks for being with us today on Cinema Recap. So today we're going to check out that thriller mystery film called Gone Girl. Spoilers ahead. Now the movie starts by introducing us to I guess he's the hero. But as you're about to find out, he might also be the murderer. His name is Nick Dunn. And from the looks of things, he's a pretty normal dude. Lives in a nice house, got a hot wife. Owns a bar with his twin sister Margot, who he calls Go. The movie starts with him at this bar, with the two chatting about board games and little else really when Nick is called back to the house by his neighbor, informing him that his cat has gotten out. So Nick gets back at home, and that's when things become weird. The place is trashed, sort of. Looks like it's been trashed, but by considerate burglars who didn't feel like stealing anything. That is, except for Nick's wife. He calls out to her, walking through the house, but it becomes pretty clear pretty quick that she's nowhere to be found. Before we get to that though, let's cover Amy. Amy is the good-looking, intelligent, desirable wife of Nick. Via flashbacks, we see how the two met in what might be the most cringy meet-cutes of all time. They spend the party making fun of other people and subtly flirting. And the night ends with a kiss in the snow. Although that snow is actually baking sugar, so this scene is extra sweet. Anyways, back to the present. Seeing that his wife is missing, he does the right thing. He calls the cops. The lead detective on the case is Detective Boney, an easygoing and easy-to-like cop who right away seems to think that something strange is going on. Nick gives her and her partner a walkthrough of the house, and although everything's looking more or less normal, except for the obvious vandalism, we get the sense that things aren't as they should be.
Should I be concerned?
Yeah, Nick, you should be, but not for the reasons you think. They take Nick down to the police station where they get his fingerprints and do all that cop stuff we know so well from the TV and movies. They also tell him that they're gonna release a missing persons report ASAP because
we are gonna take this very, very seriously.
Okay, good.
They're more or less concerned that Amy has been kidnapped. Shocking, I know. He doesn't seem to care.
Tomorrow? I have no idea.
Well, things for Nicky are about to get a lot worse. As he sleeps off his day at his sister's place, Detective Boney's informed that they found a clue at Nick's place. Literally. See? It's an envelope marked Clue 1. The next day, Nick and Amy's parents hold a press conference. Amy's parents are famous writers whose book series Amazing Amy is based on Amy as a child.
Your wife is Amazing Amy?
In this way, Amy is like a minor celebrity who, growing up, was often at the center of drama, involving cracked-out fans who mistake real life for fiction, and if not fans, crazy ex-boyfriends who become a little too obsessed with Amy. Now, this book series has made the parents rich, and they use that money to make a big splash in their bid to find their daughter. Nick gives a little speech for the camera crew and then makes sure to get a photo of himself smiling for the camera. Literally. Really, you wouldn't guess this guy's wife might be missing. Now, let us circle back to that clue. Detective Boney brings Nick up to speed and asks what it means. He tells her that yesterday was actually his and Amy's wedding anniversary, and this clue is
For our anniversary, my wife does these treasure hunts.
the first clue leads them to Nick's office at work, where there's a second clue, as well as a pair of red panties. At least we know what these two got up to in the office. The second clue is a dead end though, because bad husband Nick can't solve the riddle.
I have no idea.
At least that's what he tells Boney. Once he ditches the cops, he goes to the place of the second clue, his dad's old house. There, he finds a third clue. Another flashback now. This one details the downfall of Nick and Amy's marriage. You see, in the beginning, like all beginnings, things were great, but the 2009 economic collapse hit them both hard and put the two out of work. That'll put a strain on any marriage. Even more so when your husband's a lazy video game playing man-child who doesn't seem to know how lucky he is, at least according to Amy. Back to the present, and the world is starting to come down around Nick. Turns out that he doesn't come across as compassionate enough, a fact which his mother-in-law is only too happy to point out. And if not her, there's this groupie, insisting that Nick take a photo with her. One that he smiles in.
I know it is.
Jeez, it's like the guy wants people to start suspecting him. And wouldn't you know it, they do. If it's not the cops finding out that Nick has spent the last year racking up a huge credit card bill filled with random bachelor-like items, it's the media latching onto the Nick is a bad guy narrative and pumping negative after negative story about him. Even Margot is starting to think that Nick might not be telling her everything.
Have you told me everything?
Come on, Go. Surely Nick isn't hiding anything nefarious from you. He is a nice guy, come on, who just found himself in an unlucky... Oh no, wait. Turns out that Nick's having a secret affair with a student of his. Well, her name is Andy, and yeah, she's pretty attractive, and also super cute and lovable. You see, having sex with her in your sister's living room while your wife is missing might not be the best move. Now, among all this, we get some flashbacks from Amy's point of view detailing the falling apart of her marriage. Basically, she feels as if Nick doesn't love her as much that he thinks he needs to project this image of the happily married man. She feels like an accessory in his life, one that he might not be needing anytime soon. Oh, and just to make things even worse, here's a scene of Nick physically assaulting her.
What scared me wasn't...
I don't know, sounds a little far-fetched to me. Surely, Nick's a nice guy who's just been made out to look bad. Oh, now we see Amy was so scared for her life that she tried to buy a gun off a homeless guy recently.
You seem really desperate.
Okay, so now I'm really starting to think that maybe Nick did do this. Anyone else?
Why you ask?
The cops don't seem to be buying Nick's story either. Detective Boney's partner wants to go down and arrest Nick right now. But Boney's smart. Or at least she's careful. But Amy was trying to buy that gun. And evidence comes back on the house confirming that the blood they found there was Amy's. And there was a lot of it. But before they arrest Nick, Boney wants a murder weapon.
Thoughts on a weapon?
Or better yet, a body. Now that night, Nick goes to the vigil held for Amy. Half the town looks like they're there. But when Nick starts to speak, we see the crowd very quickly turn on him. Half the town thinks that Nick did actually do this, and things become even much worse when Amy's friend interrupts his speech
Where's your wife, Nick?
and screams that not only did he do this, but that Amy was pregnant.
What did you do to your pregnant wife?
Nick's not believing she was pregnant. In fact, he claims that Amy didn't even want kids. A sample of Amy's blood comes back, and yeah, she was like 6 weeks pregnant. It's now that the cops apply a little pressure. Boney mentions the purchases that Nick made, all of which he denies.
I didn't buy any of this stuff.
She mentions the life insurance policy that Nick filled out for Amy a few months ago, which he claims
Because she told me to!
She then runs him through the house, the blood, the staged scene. The evidence is mounting, and Nick doesn't have any answers. But he does finally make one smart move.
I don't want to talk to you again. Ever. Without a lawyer.
Later that night, two big things of note take place. The first is the cops. They go to Nick's dad's house, where the second clue from Amy's treasure hunt led them, and find Amy's diary in the furnace, half burnt but still readable. The second is Nick, finally figuring out the third clue. It leads him to the shed in Go's house, where Nick finds a literal treasure trove of purchased items, all the ones he denied having bought before. It's around this point that you might be asking, what the hell is going on here? Well, good news for you, you're about to find out. Amy, turns out, is very much alive. And not only is she alive, but she expertly staged her own murder to frame Nick. Talk about a plot twist. She spent a year planning this, making sure that she did everything just right. The car she drives, she bought with cash off Craigslist. The gun she bought, she made sure that the cops would find out. The crime scene she staged, she spent the morning draining her own blood, splashing it about and doing a bad job of cleaning it up so it would look suspicious. Her diary entries are all fake. One she wrote over a year to make Nick look like a psycho. Even the pregnancy was staged. What a bind to be in. But she thinks she's justified. You see, to her, Nick stole her life, effectively killing her. What's more, she's so damn committed to this fake murder that she plans on killing herself when the time is right, just so that they can find her body and put Nick away for life. Talk about your unhappy marriages. Amy knows that she just can't waltz around while she's being hunted though, so she dyes her hair a darker color. She puts on a little weight, loses the makeup, and camps out at the Ozarks in some backwater motel with a bunch of yokes. Heck, she even gives herself a black eye, puts on an accent.
All right, nice meeting you.
She really wants to take this guy down. As Nick explains to Margot what Amy has done, Margot asks a very poignant question.
Does Missouri have the death penalty?
I don't know about you guys, but I kind of switched over to Team Nick right now. Although at the same time, things aren't looking so good. But at least now Nick has his story and knows the truth. From there, he heads to New York City, where he starts hiring ace defensive attorney Tyler Perry. But I guess we can call him Tanner Bolt. He tells Tanner everything, to which Tanner responds.
I mean, I love it. For you, it sucks.
How very succinct. But at least Tanner agrees to help Nick. The first thing that he tells Nick to do is find more evidence, which means tracking down Amy's exes to see if this is a kind of thing that's happened before.
There has to be someone out there that she screwed with in the past.
Turns out, it has. This one ex actually pissed Amy off so much that she faked being raped by him and effectively ruined his life. And this other guy, Neil Patrick Harris, Desi, actually Nick visits him, but he's kind of weird and refuses to answer anything, so... Back home, Tanner's trying to convince Nick of his next move, to realign his image to the people. This case will be one on how much people like Nick. And right now, he's the most hated man in America. The first part of this plan is to tell everyone about the affair he's been having. Nick's thinking that's a bad idea, but Tanner is pushing hard for it. Meanwhile, Amy seems to be getting used to her new life. She's making friends with the locals, sort of. Amy isn't a very nice person, and one of them mentions that she thinks Amy, the kidnapped woman on TV,
Seems like a rich bitch to me.
Amy spits in her drink. Lovely. But something has changed in Amy.
Why should I die? I'm not the asshole.
But alas, these good friends that she's making find out about all that cash that she's been carrying with her, and wouldn't you know it, they decided to rob her for it. Looks like they weren't good friends after all. Back on Nick, as part of his desire to change his public image, he goes on a talk show in which he pleads his case to the world.
Fuck.
However, just as he's about to do that, his lover Andy comes out and admits to the affair.
I know that is no excuse.
Things are looking bad for Nick, but he pushes ahead with the interview, and for once, things actually start going well for him. As all this is going on, Amy's realizing that she needs a new plan. She ends up calling her ex-boyfriend, Neil Patrick Desi. She spins a sob story about how she had to escape from Nick, and Desi eats it up like a Christmas lunch.
Should go to prison for what he's done.
He offers her a place to stay and live, and indeed, we see this little pad of his decked out in all the latest security equipment, as well as a fully stocked fridge and a minibar. So, probably not that bad after all. Now that night, Amy and Desi sit down to watch the Nick interview, and wouldn't you know it, he actually does a good job.
I just want to find my wife.
He comes across as compassionate, caring, and humble. What's more, he seems to be saying exactly what Amy wants to hear. She's sitting on the edge of her seat, enraptured by Nick's words. It almost looks as if she's regretting everything she did. But the good news can't last forever. The cops arrive at Margot's house with a
Search warrant for your property.
They find the shed. They find the items inside, and then they arrest Nick for the murder of his very alive wife. Damn. But the bad news keeps on rolling. In lockup now, they show Nick the diary entries from his wife, the ones that detail his physical abuse towards her, the ones that says she worries Nick is gonna kill her.
This man may kill me.
He's denying it all, but at this point, you can't really blame the cops for not believing him. But don't worry, Amy's having a hard time too. She's starting to realize that maybe this whole thing was a bad idea, moving in with Desi especially. She voices this concern, but he shuts her down.
You came to me, and you chose me.
It's looking bad for both Nick and Amy, but dare I say that Amy is about to come to the rescue? I am. Needing an escape, Amy plans the perfect one. First, she makes sure to look like her old self. Check. Next, she gets about seducing Desi just enough. Oh, and making sure the camera sees him leaving her room with his shirt untucked and his lip bleeding from a vicious kiss. Check. Next, she crawls in front of the cameras and looks as if she's in trouble. Double check. A quick champagne bottle up her private parts, a knife hidden under her pillow, and she's ready for her escape. As to that escape, well, it's gruesome. Maybe Desi's the real loser in this movie. Sure looks like it. Well, the next morning, Nick's waking up to what is sure to be another terrible day. But there's commotion outside his house. He walks outside and, wouldn't you know it, it's Amy, covered in blood, walking up the driveway, collapsing in Nick's arms. Everyone but Nick seems relieved that his wife is back. She gets whisked away to the hospital where she confirms her story with the police. The story being that Desi kidnapped her, and she spent the past month living in tormented captivity, and the cops are eating that story out her hand. Except for Boney.
And how did Desi have that handle?
The one that only she and Nick could have known about. But none of the other cops really care about silly details that might help solve the case. They're just glad Amy's back. Except for Nick, who voices his concerns to the other cop. But this cop also shuts him down.
Can't you just be happy your wife is home and safe?
Once Nick gets his wife home, he demands that she tells him everything. And she does, but only after making him jump in the shower with her so she can make sure that he isn't wearing a wire. Worse, that Amy knows she has Nick bent over a barrel and forces him to go on TV with her. And Nick does too, begrudgingly. He knows that he can't just deny her story because that looks bad for him too. The only way to get out of this is to charge her. He takes his case to Tyler and Boney, and although they both believe him, they tell him there's nothing they can do.
I swear, you two are the most fucked up people I've ever known.
Tanner tells him,
You got a book deal, Lifetime movie, you franchised the bar.
You may want to thank her.
Boney tells him too that the case is now under the jurisdiction of the FBI, and they are more than happy to wrap this one up and call the case solved. Looks like Amy's gonna get away with this one. Not that any of this matters because surely Nick is gonna divorce her, right? Right? Well, unfortunately, using Nick's frozen sperm, she goes ahead and gets herself pregnant with his baby. And although he tells her that he's still gonna leave her, she reminds him that if he does that, then she'll just raise the son to hate Nick. Jesus. And what's worse, if it can get any worse, Nick realizes that he has no choice but to stay. Marco's weeping for this, hating what has happened. And worse, when she realizes that Nick, despite what he says, might not even hate Amy that much. And sure enough, we close the movie out on the same image that it opened with. Thanks for chilling with us on our recap of Gone Girl, produced by 20th Century Fox, released back in 2014. Guys, I have to know what your thoughts are on the ending to this one. Is it happy or is it the definition of tragedy? Let us know with that hashtag cinema recap in the comments. And as always, till next time.